So, guys, let's begin our class with a positive note. So, again, very beautiful lines on your screen. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So, guys, as you all know, success is not the end. Actually, it's a new beginning. And similarly, failure is not the end. Again, it's a new beginning because failure gives you courage to continue your work, to keep continuing working hard. So never lose your hopes, never lose your courage. Always take a step ahead. Either you succeed or fail. The cycle should not stop. You should keep moving, right? So you should move to achieve your goal again. So let's begin our lecture with this positive quote. So, guys, today we'll be covering two classes. So, class 8. In this, we will talk about the principles of food microbiology and overall overview of food-borne pathogens. So, guys, if you talk about the principles of food microbiology, I mean, there are complete books written on this topic, but we are not doing here graduation. You guys are not going to appear for a graduation exam or university exams or PhD exam. I mean, you are appearing for FSSA exam. So the scope of the exam, I mean, it's FSSA clearly defined that don't go in depth. If you see the word general principles, I mean basic principles, don't go in depth again. An overview of food pathogen. So we'll be covering, and I would also suggest you guys stick to things that are important. You are not appearing for any graduation exam or university exam. So make sure you stick to only important things, and moreover, I cover only the important things. So don't overload yourself with extra information. So moving ahead. So guys, also from today on, we'll be talking a lot about microbes. So today we'll be talking about what are microbes and types of microbes, how are they harmful, and in further classes we'll be talking about how to preserve our food, how to kill those microbes in our food. Also in our next class, which the next lecture that starts at 9, so we'll be talking about how these microbes enter in our food at the first place. So I mean, from now on we'll be talking about lot about microbes. So I'll within the following slides, I'll show you a chart. So I would recommend you to just get the printout of that chart and paste it on your study table or wherever you study or wherever you are comfortable, because that chart is really really important, because in that it's clearly given what kind of microbes can harm our food, what are the symptoms, if those microbes, if they are harmful, what are the symptoms from which you can recognize the type of microbes, and what kind of food they attack, because there are specific species which are found in only specific foods. So lot to learn about microbes. We'll be learning lot about microbes within our following lectures. So within I mean, like for like next 7 to 8 classes we'll be talking only about microbes. So moving ahead, and also guys, don't worry, because the questions that were asked by FSSI, they were very very basic. I mean, if you have a basic idea what microbes are, you can definitely attempt them. So need not to worry. Questions are going to be very basic, but make sure your concepts are clear. So to begin with, what are microbes? So guys, microbes, I am sure since you majority of you are from science background, so you might be knowing, right, what are microbes. But I would brush up your certain concepts so that it forms a base for what are we going to achieve within coming days. And also guys, we'll be sticking to the microbes specific to the food, because there are thousands, I mean billions of microbes, right? But the microbes which are specifically found in the food items, will be talking about that a lot. And also make sure you learn only about those microbes. Don't overload yourself with information again, right? So the tiniest life form are bacteria, yeast, mold, virus. They are termed as microbes. So guys, microbes are nothing but bacteria, yeast, mold, viruses. So everyone you would have heard about these names, right? So virus, I mean, everyone knows what virus is. A small virus had put us under lockdown for approximately like 2 years, right? So everyone knows what is virus. And bacteria, yeast, mold, fungi, I mean, even there are certain species which are good. which help our food, to our food to give texture, color, flavor. So yeast, bacteria, mold, they are also used in our food, but they also have harmful effect to the food. So we'll be talking all about this. And why they are known as microbes. So microbes, if you break this word, so microbes meaning small and organism means living thing. So that's a very, very basic definition which you can learn. So now let's talk about what are bacteria. So here, especially we'll be talking about in context of food because we are learning about food. So let's not diverge our, knowledge to other type of microbes. Let's be very, very restricted and concentrated towards food. So if you see, bacteria are of great significance to the food in the following ways. So as I said, bacteria can play multiple roles when it comes to the food. They can cause spoilage to the food. They are also used to manufacture wide variety of food products. Yes, we have talked about this, right? For example, if you eat curd, so curd is full of your bacteria, right? So they spoil the food, or they are used for manufacturing the food, and they are responsible for disease that are transmitted by food. So they have majorly three function, right? So guys, is my voice clear? I got a message from one candidate. It's saying that voice is not clear. So guys, in case voice is not clear, please check your internet. Just please confirm me, guys, if my voice is audible and clear. In case you are facing any technical issue, please disconnect, leave the meeting, and please rejoin again. Thank you. Thank you. See, majority of the candidates have mentioned there is no voice issue. So guys, whoever is facing technical issue, please leave the meeting and join again, or go to some part of your house where you get better connectivity, right? Okay. Yeah. So guys, we were talking about bacteria. So as I said, they have multiple roles. They can either spoil your food. They are also used for manufacturing the wide variety of food, and they are also responsible for diseases which are transmitted by food. So, if you eat stale food, right? So this could lead to, it could cause issues. It could cause disease in your body. So yeah, microbes have multiple functions. So moving ahead. So again, tiny bit of information again about microbes. So these are very, very tiny that we cannot see with them with our naked eyes. So you require almost a 1,000-fold magnifying microscope through which you can see these microbes. And guys, microbes, as I have already mentioned, like in my previous classes as well, microbes are everywhere on your body, on your hands, on your laptop, on your mobile, on your headphones, everywhere. Billion microbes are available. But since we are used to those microbes, so that is why we don't fall ill even if you touch your laptop and accidentally you touch your face or your mouth. So even if they enter, but now they have become a part of our body, essential part of our body, so they don't harm us. But specific strains, we'll study about them. So they are very, very harmful and even fatal. So if you see, under ideal condition, they double as frequently as every 15 minutes. So their doubling capacity or their multiplication capacity is really, really high. So they can double within 15 minutes, and within 5 minutes, within a 5 hours, they can form billions or millions of cells from a single cell. So that's the capacity of the microbes. And you might be knowing, right? Virus, our COVID-19 virus, it also spreads very fast. So that is the level of the multiplication which it can undergo, the copies they can form of their own, they can multiply in such a higher in higher capacity. So they are really, really good as well as they are really fatal. So moving ahead. So guys, the microbes, if you see, the bacteria, they exist in two forms. So just pay here attention, because if you see on your screen, so they exist in two forms. So the two forms are active vegetative cells and dormant cells. So guys, they can exist in two forms. Active vegetative cells is nothing but the normal growing cells. These are the active cells. And when you compare it to the dormant cells, dormant spores are inactive. So how these active vegetative cells go into dormant stage. So guys, see, for example, some food is being cooked by a manufacturer, right? So to preserve that food, either the food is being exposed to high temperature, right? So sometimes what happen is these active microbes, they go into dormant stage when they are exposed to certain harsh conditions. For example, milk. You might be knowing that milk always have spores. Even if you pasteurize it, it has spores. Spores can only be killed when the milk is packed in complete sterile conditions, right? So normal packets, if you see, even pasteurization cannot kill spores. So you need really, really high temperature to kill spores. So spores are really dangerous because whenever normally the bacteria in our food are in active vegetative cells, but when you expose them to certain harsh condition, as I said, be it temperature, be it chemical preservatives, be it natural preservatives, I mean, you just, if you try to disturb their microflora, is if you try to disturb their normal conditions, so they enter into dormant spores. So dormant spore basically is the microbes which were active earlier, now they become inactive. So if they become inactive, they are resistant to any type of treatment, be it heat, be it radiation, be it chemicals, and they can even now survive without nutrients. Dormant mean they are inactive, so they can survive without nutrients. They they require very less water, or they require very less calciums for their energy, right? And they can remain in that dormant environment for like even years. So whenever that if the normal conditions are achieved again, for example, you have kept food, for example, you when you buy milk from the market, so you buy it in our milk is preserved, right? It's preservative, sorry, it's pasteurized, right? So if you drink the packaged milk, tetra pack, right? So tetra pack milk, that is ultra high temperature sterilized, so ultra high temperature pasteurized. So at those high temperature, even spores are killed. But if you bring that completely sterile pack and you keep it normally, you open it and keep it on your table, so you will see even that spoils. Why? Because now the spores, if there was any spores which are left in that food, and if they are, if they were in the dormant stage, so now they become active, because now the environment is no more sterile. You have opened that packet, you have exposed it to the environment. So now those they have now the conditions are uh, I mean conditions are proper for them to thrive again, survive again. So now these dormant spores, they again become active. So if they become active, they will spoil the food. So the story starts from here. Normally there are active vegetative cells, so whenever there are harsh conditions, they turn into spores. So spores again become active if those if the conditions which are essential for them to survive is achieved again. As I said, if you bring a packet of sterile milk, if you keep it open in on your table, so again it is exposed to the environment. So from environment again, a lot of microbes would attack and they can again become active. I hope it's clear, guys. Understanding this is point is really, really important. If you have understood, please give me thumbs up. In case if you have any doubt, just WhatsApp me. I can explain you again after class, but I think I made my full efforts to explain it very, very simple in a very easy way. Okay. So if you see, vegetative cells form spore under adverse conditions. So again, that is the thing which I explained. It's mentioned again. So when the vegetative cells, they are exposed to adverse condition, right? They change into spores. That is their mean of survival. So it preserves the bacteria. So when they change themselves to spores, it helps the bacteria from to preserve themselves from starvation, drying, freezing, chemical heat. I mean, you give anything now, be it any type of preservative technique, so they will survive, they will be present in our food, but in dormant stage. So when the condition become favorable, spores germinate again. Yes. So whenever the conditions become again, they become favorable for these microbes to grow. So then again, they will turn into active stage and they can spoil the food, right? So moving ahead, so guys, remember this because it's a very very important point, because a question can be asked from this point, right? So what are vegetative cells, or how, what are harmful bacterial form that can be always present in our food, right? So such kind of questions can be asked. So now moving to what is yeast and mold. So if you see here on your screen, so yeast is nothing but an oval shaped structure or an oval shaped microorganisms. So they are slightly larger than bacteria. So yeast, guys, it's nothing but a unicellular, and it reproduces asexually by budding. Whereas if you see mold, so mold are multicellular organisms and they produce sexually and asexually both. So yeast and molds, there's a very thin line, which differentiate both of these, yeast and molds. So moving ahead, so if you see, yeast and mold grow on most of the foods. It can grow on your food, on your equipment. Even you would have seen the ceiling of the buildings, right? Or the corners of the building where there is a moisture. So even yeast and molds can grow over there. And also, if you see, guys, yeast and mold, they can survive in very, very harsh conditions where bacteria cannot survive. Because if you see here, bacteria cannot survive in low pH or moisture or temperature, high temperature, or high salt or sugar concentration. But if you see, yeast and mold predominant in these, right? So they can survive even in dry foods. Dry foods, if you see, I mean, you keep a bread on your table for like a week, a mold would grow there, right? So they can even survive in harsher condition than the bacteria. So they can even grow in salted fish or bread or pickles or jams. If you It's a normal thing, right? Whenever the pickle spoils at your home, so you see there's a growth of mold and yeast like structures. So normally, so on in these harsh conditions they can survive. And moreover, you have seen, like in pickles there is a lot of salt and a lot of oil. Even then, these microbes, this yeast and mold, they have the tendency to grow in these harsh conditions and spoil the food. So even jam, jellies, and similar commodities. So just remember, they can even survive in such harsh conditions, mold and yeast, right? So moving ahead. So what is virus? So now let's talk about, in few points, what is virus? I'm sure everyone would know what virus is by, especially in 2021 now. So unlike bacteria, yeast, and mold, viruses are incapable of reproducing independently. So they cannot reproduce independently. Everyone knows virus requires some host. For example, for coronavirus, we were the host, right? They enter in our body, they grow in our body. So we are the host. If you see here, instead, they first invade the cell of another living organism called host. So that is what COVID-19 virus does, right? So it invades the host. In this case, we are the host before they multiply, and they multiply in our body so fast that there is no chance for the survival. That is why the death rates in our country, not in our country, across the globe, they were really, really high. And hence they are known as parasite, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the general factors which affect the growth of the microorganisms. So guys, we would be talking this, we'll talk about this in detail when we talk about the food preservation techniques. And also moreover, within coming like 7 to 8 classes, as I said, we'll be talking about only microbes, because majority of the portion now would be focusing on microbes. So now we'll talk about just general factors which affect the growth of the microbes. So if you see, so how these microbes can be controlled, be in our food specifically. So if you see, removing or destroying them by washing, heating, pickling, by adding chemicals. So these are the basic, activities that you would have seen your moms doing in your kitchen, right? Washing the food every day, raw food, and heating it and cooking it and then pickling it and then adding chemical preservatives. Majorly, this is, vinegar is added, right, to most of the food. That is basically to give flavor as well as to preserve the food. And also, if you see, minimizing contamination from equipment. Yes, this is really, really important. And also, guys, we would be reading about these things in detail when we talk about, there are certain guidelines given by FSSAI, especially Schedule 4 requirements. So in Schedule 4 requirements, there's a specific topic and very, very important topic. So in those, FSSAI has clearly given the details about how to handle different type of foods, how your building structure should be. For example, if there is a butcher shop, right? If there is a meat shop, so how that meat shop should be designed. FSSAI has given clear instructions for that. Even if there is a milk manufacturing unit, milk processing unit, so similarly for different type of processing foods, basically the high risk food, this milk, meat, and all this comes in high risk foods. So FSSAI has given a complete guidelines to these manufacturers, how they should make their manufacturing units, how they should use the equipments, how the food processors, or how the cooks who are working in those manufacturing unit, what should be their hygiene level, how should they practice their hygiene, right? So everything, I mean, in detail, it's given in those documents, and we'll cover in detail, and it's really interesting, right? So moving ahead, minimizing the contamination from equipment. So contamination from equipment is very, very important, because, for example, if you are using a knife to cut vegetables, and you use the same knife, at the same time to cut any meat part, be it chicken or be it fish. So, I mean, it's a cross contamination, right? You are contaminating. First, you are cutting the microbes. So, I mean, the meat, from that meat, that microbes that are present in the meat, they are transferred to the vegetarian food, right? So similarly, when you're cutting a vegetarian food and you are using the same knife and the chopping board, so the microbes from that vegetarian food can get transferred to this meat. So I mean, use of equipment is very, very important. And people, yes, people, as I said, so hygiene is very important. The person who is cooking the food in the kitchen, their personal hygiene is really, really important. And the environment, for example, FSSAI has clearly mentioned in their document, whenever you are setting up a restaurant, so near that restaurant there should not be any filthy place. The washroom should be very, very far from the kitchen. So these are the basic guidelines which FSSAI has mentioned, because the environment surrounding the kitchen especially should be really, really clean to prevent any contamination. So, and from the unprocessed food, yeah, I mean, you are using the same kitchen for processed and unprocessed food, so it again could lead to cross contamination, right? So on the next point, minimizing microbial growth on the equipment by cleaning and sanitizing. Yeah, I mean, if you want to minimize this microbes growth in these equipments, so it is very, very easy by cleaning and just sanitizing those. It can be done, and we'll do this in detail when we talk about Schedule 4. For example, I'll give you a small example. In the meat manufacturing units, FSSAI has mentioned how to wash the area where the animals are slaughtered, how to wash the equipments which are used for cutting those animal body parts. So each and everything is given in detail, how to clean them, how to sanitize, for how much time one should sanitize, even to those details. FSSAI has given the guidelines, so don't worry, we'll do that in detail in our class as well, not an issue. So now if you see, so microbial degradation of protein, carbs, and fats. So these microbes which are present in our food, so how do they degrade? What are the species of the microbes which are responsible for the degradation of the protein, carbs, and fats? So moving ahead, so when we talk about protein, so if you see, the protein containing food, particularly meats, yes, are putrefied by organisms such as Pseudomonas, Proteus, and Clostridium bacteria. So these are the major bacteria which decay these proteins in the meat. That is, that they break down the long peptide chains. So protein, as you know, they are made up of peptide chains, right? Peptide molecules. So they form the protein. So they break down these long peptide chains into the amino acids, and this releases foul smell of ammonia, amines, and hydrosulfides. So this is how these microbes, they attack the food. For example, if you keep a part of meat in open space, so you would see after few days it would start decaying. So it is because of these microbes. Again, you would have definitely, I mean, experienced this in your once in your life. So there's a very, very harsh smell that comes from the decaying animal body part, right? So it's because of the hydrogen sulfide, amines, and ammonia which are released, and majority of the bacteria which are responsible are these: Pseudomonas, Proteus, and Clostridium bacteria. So you need to remember the names of these bacteria and the gases which they release. Not the gases name is not important, but bacteria definitely. Which kind of bacteria attacks the a kind of food, right? So now moving ahead, so if you see carbohydrates, so carbohydrates we have done, right? These are basically sugars. So they are fermented into acids, right? And alcohols or gases, especially carbon dioxide. So these carbohydrates, they are fermented into these acids by like acetic acid in vinegar by a class of bacteria. So this process is responsible for the bursting of spoiled chocolate cream candies by yeast. So if you see the carbohydrates majorly in the chocolates, so the species which is responsible, the microorganism that is responsible is the yeast. So it leads to the bursting of the chocolate cream inside the candies, and this is carried by yeast. And also it leads to fermentation. Fermentation, as you know, yeast is responsible. Yeast is the microorganism that is responsible for fermentation process, right? So it leads to acetic acid formation in vinegar, or also it could lead to alcohol or gases formation, especially carbon dioxide, especially for the carbohydrates food. So now moving to the fats. So fat containing foods such as dairy products are spoiled by microbes that break down lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. So rancid milk, which can be caused by bacteria, yeast, and mold, is an example of the process. So fatty, if you see the fat-based products, basically dairy product, they can be spoiled by either by bacteria, yeast, or mold, because milk products are very, very nutritious and they are present in wide variety. I mean, there's a milk, there's cheese, or there's ice cream. I mean, you just name the product and you would find some or the other dairy ingredient in that. So it can be attacked by any of the microorganisms, be it bacteria, yeast, or mold, right? So moving ahead, also now let's talk about canned foods. So if you see, improperly canned foods are also subject to spoilage, and bacteria such as Bacillus and Clostridium are particularly significant in the canning industry because high level of resistance that their spores process. So guys, whenever the especially in the canning industry, whenever the food is canned, so Bacillus and Clostridium, remember this, these are very, very notorious bacteria which are very, very important when it comes to the canned foods, because these bacteria, as I said, they exist in spores formation. So whenever they get the favorable condition, they can spoil the canned food. So the food manufacturers, especially the canned food manufacturers, they make sure that Bacillus and Clostridium are removed, or they make sure that food is saved from these two microbes. And one example of the microbial spoilage of the canned food is sulfide spoilage caused by C. nigricans. So this is just a basic example, and this is the name of bacteria, C. nigricans. So it leads to sulfide spoilage of the canned foods, right? So moving ahead. So now, guys, let's talk about foodborne pathogens. So this is what I was talking about when we started our class. So here I'll be taking you to few bacteria, and also, the diseases which they cause, their symptoms, which you would see if you consume such spoiled food. And also we'll talk about the food in which they are predominantly present. So guys, this is the chart. I'm sure even in this chart was given in notes as well. So guys, just take a printout of these charts from your notes, or if you are comfortable, I mean, with the PDF copy. So make sure you just give a glance through it every day, because this is a very, very comprehensive chart. I mean, in a single chart, you can completely cover all these things. And I would like to tell you, last year in 2019 exam. So in mains exam, a question was asked from this topic. So I mean, the candidates who have drawn this chart, they are through, right? I mean, they have asked complete a single question, 15-mark question, if I'm not wrong, from this topic. So this is the very, very important chart. Make sure you just go through it, just run through it every day, or I mean once in a week, so you don't forget things, because you need to, somehow remember this information. These five columns majorly, if you see the name of the organism, common name of the illness, and symptoms and food sources. So these four columns you need to just imprint these four columns in your brain somehow. Just go through it every day, or paste it on your study table, whatever. So if you see, so now guys, in this is a very, very interesting and important topic, because it would give you a lot of information about, normally the foods that we consume. I mean, you can see the normal foods: meat, gravies, vanilla sauce, poultry, milk, water, vegetables, fermented food, again, poultry. So these are the normal foods that we consume in our daily diet, right? So you would be surprised the type of microorganisms which are present in them, and the diseases which they can cause, and the symptoms. So now, whenever you fall ill after eating some food, I mean, you would be definitely be able to relate. For example, if you eat meat, if you have eaten meat last night, and next day when you get up, you have some abdominal cramps, nothing but stomach ache, right? If you have diarrhea, if you have nausea, so you can relate that your food was contaminated with Bacillus cereus microbes. So guys, from examination point of view, as well as from your knowledge point of view, right, from awareness point of view, this topic is very, very important. So let's start. So guys, you have to remember all these names. If you see, the first is Bacillus cereus. So the common name of the illness that this food causes is, it's very, very simple: Bacillus cereus food poisoning. And if you see, if at all you get poisoned by this bacteria, so you would see these symptoms. You would have abdominal cramps, or you would have watery diarrhea, or you would have nausea. And the major food source in which this Bacillus cereus is present, it can be meat, stews, gravies, or vanilla sauce. So if at all you consume such food and you fall ill, so you can blame this bacteria, Bacillus cereus, right? So now moving to the next point, you see Campylobacter jejuni. So if you see again, this microorganisms, the illness that is it causes is nothing but, again, it's derived from its name, that is Campylobacteriosis. So this is the common name of the illness. And symptoms, if you see, again, diarrhea. So guys, again, I'll give you a hint here. Majority of the times, like you would have also experienced, if you eat some food and if you fall ill, definitely the diarrhea is one of the major symptom, right? The next day you have abdominal cramps, you have diarrhea, loose motion, right? So if at all you cannot remember, just make sure, if you see, diarrhea is always present. Again, in the third point, diarrhea is here, right? Abdominal cramps are here. So the symptoms can be very, very common. I mean, if you give it a reading like twice or thrice, you can easily remember. So the common symptom here are for Campylobacter jejuni is diarrhea, cramp, fever, vomiting, and diarrhea may be bloody. Even, there might be blood in your stool. So this is a level of severity which Campylobacter jejuni can cause. And if you see here, raw and uncooked poultry, unpasteurized milk, contaminated water. So C. jejuni, it is found majorly in raw and uncooked poultry. So the chicken that you eat, so it is normally present in that chicken, raw chicken. But once you cook it, so these microbes are definitely dead, right? So that is why if you consume poultry once in a week or daily, you don't fall ill, because these microbes, they get killed when they are exposed to certain temperature or when they are cooked. They are normally present in raw and uncooked poultry and unpasteurized milk. So the milk that freshly comes from the udder of the cow. So that is why we need to pasteurize it. Pasteurization is very, very important technique, and it's a very, very important preservation milk technique, which we'll cover in food preservation techniques when we talk about that topic later on. So see, jejunai, it can be found in unpasteurized milk and contaminated water even. So sometimes water get contaminated, right? When water is supplied to your houses. So during that time, during supplying, it can be contaminated, right, from these sources. So yeah, even normal water. So sometimes it's recommended you should drink boiled water. So this is the reason, to kill all this bacteria. So the third is Clostridium botulinum. So guys, this is majorly the disease illness it causes is botulism. So the symptoms, if you see again, these are common symptoms, right? Vomiting, diarrhea. The major symptoms, if you see with botulism, is blurred vision, double vision, difficulty in swallowing, and it can result in respiratory failure in severe conditions. So this is majorly found in canned foods, especially home canned vegetables, fermented fish, baked potatoes in aluminum foil. So guys, if you see Clostridium botulinum, so botulinum, if you relate, it's related to bottle, right? Bottle, the water bottle. It is the word is similar to bottle, right? Botulism, bottle. So here, if you see the canned food, right? So the canned food are also, if you relate, processed food, majorly they are in bottles or cans. So you can remember it in that way, Clostridium botulinum. So they are present, for example, bottle. This name can remind you of bottle, water bottle. So if you see, they are present in canned foods, right? So just make few tricks on your own to remember this. If you remember it with tricks, it would be very, very easy for you. So they are found in canned foods, especially home canned food, fermented fish, baked potato in aluminum foil. So next, Clostridium perfringens. So it causes perfringens food poisoning, and the symptoms are intense abdominal cramps or watery diarrhea. And the food in which they are found is again meat, poultry, gravy, dried and pre-cooked foods, and the temperature abused foods. So what are temperature abused food? For example, when a food, if you would have seen the foods which get transport, the milk, especially the milk which get transported to your local shop, right, local area shop, that is transported in a in a closed van which has controlled temperature. In those closed van, the environment inside is maintained at a certain low temperature, means it's a cold temperature. In case that cooling system fails, if that cooling system fails, and the required temperature which is essential for that food is not maintained, so then the food becomes temperature abused. So it's very, very easy term. So the required temperature, when it's not provided for the food, so the food becomes temperature abused food. So Clostridium perfringen, it can be found in such foods. So moving ahead, so now, cryptosporidium. So it could lead to the common name, if you see, intestinal cryptosporidiosis, and it could lead to diarrhea, and again stomach cramps, upset stomach, slight fever. And again, if you see, cryptosporidium is found in uncooked foods or food contaminated by ill food handler after cooking, and contaminated drinking water. See, guys, ill food handler. If some the cook or the chef who is cooking the food, or for example, your mom in the kitchen, if she is suffering from some illness, right? So if she is exposed to cryptosporidium, so it can be passed on from the food handler to the cook or the food, right? Also, it is found in uncooked foods or the contaminated drinking water. So now, coming to this Cyclospora saitaniensis. So if you see, the symptoms that it causes is, or the common name of illness is cyclosporiasis. And the symptoms, if you see, it's diarrhea, again the loss of appetite, and loss weight, stomach cramp, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, and various type of fresh produce. So this is the bacteria. Just remember this name, Cyclosporiasis seitanensis. So this is found in fresh produce, for example, basil, lettuce, or berries. So this is the only food majorly, if you see, it would be found in fresh produce. So now you can make a short trick here. For example, the bacteria which is found in fresh food, it is only Cyclospora. So yeah, I mean, just try to remember this with few short tricks. Make your own short tricks as per your convenience. So now E. coli. E. coli is, guys, very, very common, right? E. coli, I mean, it's even in your body. So E. coli is very, very common. And the common disease which it causes is E. coli infection. It is also known as traveler's diarrhea. And if you see the symptoms, again, watery diarrhea, cramps, or vomiting, and it can be transmitted into your body through water. Water is the potential source, right, in which E. coli can survive, and it can be easily transferred to your body. Or the food contaminated with human feces. Yes, as I said, it's very, very common in our body. It's very uh, common in our feces, right? Human feces. So if the water or the food is contaminated with human feces, so you can have E. coli infection, right? I hope, guys, it's clear till now. If things are clear, just give me thumbs up. So then we'll move ahead. Yeah. I mean, it's very, very basic, right? There's nothing to worry about because you eat these foods every day. Only, you have to remember the name of the bacteria majorly. So if at all you fall ill, so you can easily relate, right? I mean, yeah. So now coming to the next, if you see hepatitis A, so it causes common name of illness is hepatitis. So again, the symptom it causes is diarrhea, then jaundice, then flu-like symptoms like fever, headache, nausea, abdominal pain. And again, hepatitis A virus, it can be found in raw produce, then contaminated drinking water, uncooked foods, and cooked foods that are reheated after contact with the infected food handler, then shellfish from contaminated water. So just remember three to four food sources which these hepatitis can, attack. So just remember three or four, nothing else. So now coming to Listeria monocytogenes. So the common name of illness is listeriosis. So if you see here, it could lead to variety of symptoms like fever, muscle ache, the nausea, diarrhea. Now remember, guys, here this is the only food or the only bacteria which is related to pregnant women. So just remember, make it a short trick. So the bacteria which is related with the pregnant woman is Listeria monocytogenes. So pregnant women may have mild flu-like illness and infection, which could lead to premature delivery or stillbirth. The elderly or the immunocompromised patient may develop meningitis. So guys, here just remember these symptoms: fever, muscle ache, nausea, diarrhea, and this is the only bacteria which can affect the pregnant women. So this can be transferred to us through unpasteurized milk or soft cheese made up of unpasteurized milk or ready to eat meats. So these are the major foods through which it can be transferred in our body, right? Okay. So moving ahead, so noroviruses. So basically, variously called viruses, then, winter diarrhea, acute non-bacteria, food poisoning, and infection. So these are the common names that normally, if you are affected by norovirus, these are the common illnesses which doctor would suggest. Doctor would say you have food poisoning, or you have food infection. So that is because of noroviruses. So if you see, the major symptoms are nausea, vomiting, then headaches, cramps, and diarrhea is more prevalent in adults, and vomiting is more common in children. In the food, if you see, raw produce, and then contaminated drinking water, uncooked food, and infected food handler, shellfish. I mean, some foods even get repetitive. So just try to learn through the charts, right? Also, now coming to salmonella. Salmonella is very, very common. If you see, it's majorly found in poultry, egg, poultry, meat, unpasteurized milk, cheese, contaminated raw and fruits, vegetables. The common name of illness is salmonellosis. And the symptoms which it causes is very, very nominal. I mean, very, very simple: diarrhea, fever, abdominal cramps, vomiting. And majority of the times you consume salmonella, guys, because they are found in normal foods. If you see eggs, then poultry, then milk, cheese. So salmonella entering in our body is, the chances are very, very high, right? So now coming to Shigella. So shigellosis is the common name of illness. Again, it leads to abdominal cramps, fever, diarrhea, and stool may contain blood or mucus. And the food through which it can enter in our body is raw food, and then drinking water, contaminated drinking water, uncooked food, cooked food that are not reheated after contact with the infected food handler. So, guys, even FSSAI has said that once once food comes to normal temperature, for example, you have cooked your food, so food once cooked, it should be kept in the refrigerator after maximum after 2 hours. So you should not keep any food more than 2 hours without refrigeration. Even FSSAI in their food best practices, FSSAI has mentioned. So whenever you guys consume your food again, make sure you reheat your food, because reheating is very, very important. You never know, right? Whenever you have kept in your fridge, there might be cross contamination which might occur in your refrigerator, right? So make sure after cooking your food, keep it in the refrigerator at least after 2 hours. Don't expand that. And whenever you eat the cooked food, make sure you reheat, right? Fine. So now coming to Staphylococcus aureus. So the main illness is staphylococcal food poisoning. This is known as food poisoning. And if you see the sudden onset of severe nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, fever, diarrhea, and the foods which are unrefrigerated. Yes. So this is what I was talking about. If you don't refrigerate your food or improperly refrigerated meats, so if you do that, so guys, Staphylococcus aureus is the bacteria which can grow in your food if you don't refrigerate your food as per the FSSAI guidelines within 2 hours. So 2 hours is the deadline. I mean, you have to refrigerate your food, especially meats, eggs, salads, cream pastries, because guys, these are highly nutritious food, right? So bacteria can attack them very easily. So make sure you store them in food after consuming it or after cooking it. So now coming next. So the next is Vibrio para hemolyticus. So if you see, it's V parahemolyticus infection. So again, the symptoms are watery diarrhea, then abdominal cramp, nausea, vomiting, fever. I mean, symptoms are almost similar, right? So it could be in uncooked or raw seafood, especially shellfish. So if you see Vibrio para hemolyticus, it majorly attacks shellfish, right? So in the previous slide, we have seen a bacteria which attacks only fresh vegetables. So just remember the bacteria which attacks fresh vegetable, the name of that bacteria, and the bacteria which attacks only shellfish. Shellfish are, for example, crabs, or I mean prawns, or it can be prawns, it can be shrimps, right? Anything of which belongs to shellfish class. So Vibrio para hemolyticus attacks the shellfish category of the food, right? I hope it's clear, guys. Right? I hope it's clear. So now we'll begin with our next class. Just give me thumbs up, guys, if you have understood the topic, because I try to keep the things very, very easy. Because if things are easy and interesting, you can imbibe it and you can retain it better. There is no point making things complex, because again, that is not the demand of the exam. Demand of the exam is, as a food safety officer, you should be aware of the basics, general, right? Overview. That is why FSSAI writes in front of every topic overview. So make sure you read your syllabus properly, because that is the stepping stone, right? Fine, fine. Thank you, guys. So now we'll begin the next class. So just give me a minute, guys. Just give me a minute. Hello. Yeah, so guys, let's begin with our next class. So in this, we'll be talking about the overview of the sources of the microorganisms in food chain. So now, You have seen, I mean, microbes, they are good for your food, they are bad for your food, right? They can it can be very, very harmful for you. So on first place, how do they enter in our food chain? Because there are a lot of routes through which these microbes can enter in our food chain. It can be raw material, it can be water, it can be air, it can be equipment, or it can be soil, or it can be surrounding environment, or it can be ill food handler, right? I mean, there can be multiple sources. So food is very, very uh, prone to these microbes. So we need to read in brief, or at least you have a general idea how foods can enter in the food chain. So let's begin. So first of all, guys, this is the summary majorly. So we'll be talking about how microbes, they are present in fruits and vegetables, or how do they are enter in animals, birds, fish and shellfish, and how do they enter in our food chain? Ultimately we are eating these foods, right? So these are the sources from which food can enter in our food chain. Microbes can enter in our food chain. So as I said, they can enter through air, they can enter through soil, they can enter through sewage or water. Even humans, I mean, we are the carriers of microorganisms. Billions of microbes are present on our body. Even equipments that we use, for example, knife, chopping board, or I mean, be it any equipments, right? Even utensils. So just get a brief idea about this. I'll give you the overview of these all topics, and you would be able to relate it when you read about the schedule 4 of the FSSAI. Schedule 4 is, guys, really, really interesting and important topic. So moving ahead, if we talk about the plant, fruits and vegetables, so how microbes enter into these plants, fruits and vegetables that we eat every day. So we'll talk about that. And also we'll talk about how can we remove these microbes from these foods. So if you see, we'll talk about the microbes, the name of the microbes which are present in these foods, and the sources. How do they enter? If you see, the inside tissue of the food from the plant source are essentially sterile. For example, if you see the example of apple, right? So we never wash apple from inside. We wash only from outside, right? So the inside of the food is majorly sterile. But the microbes which are present, they are present on the surface. And also, if you see, some plants produce natural antimicrobial metabolism that limits the presence of these microbes. Yes, as we all know, we read about the anti-nutritional factors, right? Secondary metabolites. Plant release secondary metabolites that is, and then which are known as anti-nutritional factors. So they try to protect themselves from these microbes. So that is why they produce these antimicrobial metabolites. So fruits and vegetables, they harbor microbes on the surface. As I said, they microbes are present majorly on the surface. Inside is mostly sterile, free of microbes, and their type, level vary from the soil condition, type of fertilizer, water used, air quality. So guys, these are the major sources from which the microbes can contaminate these foods. It can be through soil, it can be through the fertilizers that we use, it is the water that we spray on the food, or the water that we give to the food. For example, water can be anything, right? It can be from multiple sources. It can be clean water, or it can be treated sewage water. So yeah, or also the air quality, right? Surrounding air quality. If the food or the apple, for example, apple, if they are grown in the environment, so near that orchard, apple orchard, right? So there's a garbage dumping ground close by. So the microbes can fly from those garbage dumping ground and can stick on the surface of this apple, right? So that is why microbes can spread from various sources. So if you see on the next point, mold, yeast, lactic acid bacteria from genera Pseudomonas, or it can be Micrococcus, or it can be Bacillus, Clostridium, Enterobacter, can be expected from this source. So on plants, and especially the vegetables and the fruits that we eat, so these are the class of bacteria which can be present on this food, and these can come from any of these sources. It can come from soil, it can come from water, it can come from oil. So now what you have to remember here is just 2 to 3 microbes, name of the microbes you have to remember, in the type of food they attack, that is the vegetable foods, right? So disease of the plants, They can cause disease of the plant, damage of the surface, or long delay between harvesting and washing, unfavorable storage, transport condition after harvesting. So guys, when do they attack? If you see, so whenever there is a disease in the plant, so whenever if you see, if there is a small cut in the leaf of the plant, so either it repairs itself or it completely dies, right? So microbes, they come and eat. So damage of the surface, so during harvesting, if there is a damage of the surface of the fruit or the food, so again these microbes can attack it easily. And long delay between harvesting and washing. So whenever the food is harvested, whenever the fruits are harvested, or vegetables are harvested, they must be washed immediately to remove these microbes. Because if they stay for a longer period of time, they can again lead to spoilage of the food. Again, unfavorable storage. As you know, proper storage conditions are required for storing the food for longer period of time. For example, there are cold storage houses. So those cold storage, they have high quality, these storage conditions. Um, so that microbes cannot grow in those conditions, right? So after harvesting, before processing, it greatly increases microbial number as well as predominant types. So yeah, I mean, these are the basic things which can help us to control these microbes during these stages, right? So moving ahead, method to avoid it. If you see here, the methods have been clearly given. Proper method used during growing, such as use of treated sewage water or other fertilizers. Then damage reduction during harvesting. So whenever the fruits are harvested, make sure they are not damaged. It should be harvested very carefully. Then quick washing with good quality of water, by removing the dust and dirt, and storage at low temperature. So these are the very basic things which are normally practiced even at our home. Whenever you get fresh fruits or fresh vegetables from your market, you wash it properly, you soak it, you dry it, and you keep it in your refrigeration. So the major why you do this is to prevent the microbial attack on such foods. So these are the major methods which are required for avoiding this microbial growth. And also, guys, today I'll share with you one PDF as well. So in that PDF, you can just go through this topic, because this topic is very basic, right? So you just go through that topic as well, that PDF, and you will get a better idea. So now let's talk about the microbes which are present in these foods, like fish, shellfish, or poultry that you eat. So if you see, food animals and birds, they normally carry many microbes in their digestive and respiratory tract, right? And in their urinary tract, or in their udder, or on their skin, or their hooves, feathers. So these pathogens are like salmonella. As you see, it's very common in poultry. So just we read in our last slide. So salmonella is majorly in our poultry, then raw meat, right? So pathogens are salmonella, then E. coli, Campylobacter jejuni, Listeria monocytogenes. So just remember the name of these microbes. And yeah, then coming next here. So poor husbandry resulting in fecal contamination of the body surfaces and supplying contaminated water and feed. Example, contaminated with salmonella can change their normal microbial behavior. So whenever you have, for example, a farmer has cow, right? So the cow should be kept clean. It should be given clean water to drink, which should be free from salmonella. So these are the major, things which farmers should keep in mind while raising cow. Because if these are not kept in mind, so whenever they get milk from the cow, so these microbes can easily enter in the food. So now coming to the fish and shellfish, they also carry the normal microflora on their skin, scales, digestive tracts. So pathogens such as Vibrio bacteria, then V. vulnificus, and the cholera are the major concern from these foods. So in these seafoods, these are the bacteria which are majorly found. These are the microbes. So just remember 2 or 3 names of these microbes, the type of food they can attack, right? So now coming to next slide, how we can remove it. If you see, good housing and supplying of the uncontaminated feed and water, also testing animals and birds of pathogen. Yes. So guys, again, we'll cover this in detail when we talk about schedule for requirements, because in schedule for requirements, FSA has clearly given whenever the animals are brought to slaughterhouses. So how to, keep those animals stress free. For example, whenever the animals are brought to slaughterhouse, they should be given proper condition, means they should not be kept in sunlight. They should be kept under shade. They should be checked for any kind of disease before slaughtering. They should be given proper, humane conditions, for example, water, feed. So these are the conditions. I mean, these are very, very important. So housing and supplying of uncontaminated food and water, then testing animals and birds before, you know slaughtering them to check any pathogenic microorganisms in food, and then also proper cleaning of the udder before milking. Yes, so this is very, very important. So especially when it comes to milk, so whenever the milk is to be taken from the cow, the udder should be cleaned very properly, and then milk should be cooled immediately after milking, right? And then processing as soon as possible. So milk and meat, guys, these are uh, high risk food. Majorly they are known as high risk food. So in these cases, we have to take good precautions. Also coming to the eggs, if you see, eggs should be collected as soon as after laying and washed and stored as per recommended procedure. And also marine products should be harvested under unpolluted and recommended water. Proper sanitation should be used during processing. So again, I mean, these are the basic hygiene. Sometimes I wonder, our mothers are born food safety officers, right? I mean, no one teaches them. They know it. These are very, very basic things. Even you would have seen your mom practicing it. Whenever eggs, you buy eggs from the market, you wash it, you store it in the refrigerator, provide proper temperature, right? Even with the milk, whenever you get the milk, you heat the milk and you store it in the your refrigerator. So these are the basic things which even a food safety officer must know, right? Right. So yeah, I mean, preparing for this exam, guys, it's not a difficult thing. I mean, it's really interesting exam. It's very easy exam basically. But yeah, when we use word easy, so the competition goes high. So you have to be very, very clear with each and every topic. And if you want to meet the best food safety officers, those are at your home, your mothers. So talk to your mothers whenever you want to talk about food. So they would give you better idea, than any book in this world. So now let's talk about the air. So how microbes can how microbes in the air, they can contaminate our food. So if you see, so the microorganisms are present in dust and moisture droplets in the air. Yeah, it's very known fact, right? There's no brainer in this. So they are present in dust for the moisture that is present in the air. So spores of Bacillus, Clostridium, mold, cell of gram-positive bacteria like Micrococcus and Sarcina, as well as the yeast, these are predominantly present in air. So the normal air that we breathe every day, so or near any contaminated site, so these are the microbial species which can be easily found. So if the surrounding contains source of pathogen, example animal poultry farms or the sewage treatment plant, different type of bacteria including pathogen and viruses can be transmitted via air. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, so if there is a dumping site near a food manufacturing unit, right, so the microbes can easily with the help of air, they can be transmitted from the these dumping site to the food sites, right? Food manufacturing area. So that is why in FSSAI guidelines, it's clearly given that the restaurant or the hotel or the manufacturing units, food units should be away from such filthy places. So they should be located in a very, very clear surrounding. So again, when we talk about Schedule 4, you would be really loving that topic. That's a really interesting topic. So just remember these basics, because then we will relate this topic to Schedule 4. So whenever we talk, when we do Schedule 4, I would definitely, one day before, I would recommend you guys to go through this topic again so that you can relate it, right? And if you see majority of the topics in FSSAI exam, there's a repetitive, there is a link actually. None of the topic is separate. There's a linkage between each and every topic. So now if you see how we can avoid the microbes from the air. So the microbial contamination of the food from the air can be reduced by removing the potential sources or the controlling dust particle in the air. or by using filtered air or installing UV lights. So these are the major sources by which we can kill the microbes which are present in the air, either by using the high quality filters. So those filters can purify the air and make the, keep the kitchens or the food manufacturing area clean, or even in bigger manufacturing units, the high, UV lights of high capacity are installed to kill the microbes which are present in the air, right? So now, guys, let's talk about the microbes which can come from soil into our food. So, guys, soil is, I mean, this is a very, very basic parameter, because each and every food, majority like plant foods that grow in the soil, right? So there is a no-brainer. Soil is a rich source of microbes. It's a storehouse for microbes. So some are good microbes, some are bad microbes. So both of these good or the bad microbes, they can enter in our food chain through this food, right? So if you see, soil, especially the type used to grow agriculture produce and raise animals and birds, contains several variety of microbes. So soil, as I said, these are the storehouse for the microbes. And because microbes can multiply in soil, their number can vary very high. Like a 1 gram of soil, it can have billions of microbes. If you can see here, billion per gram. 1 gram is nothing, right? So billions of microbes can be present in 1 gram of soil, and many type of mold, yeast, bacteria like Enterobacter, Pseudomonas, then Micrococcus, Enterococcus, and Bacillus, Clostridium, they can enter our food chain through the soil. So just remember 4 to 5 names from here. And yeah, source that is soil. And soil, you all know that it's a very uh, it's a very really good environment for the microbes to thrive. So now, what's the technique to avoid these microbes from the soil from entering our food chain? So technique is really, really simple, guys. If you see, washing. So you get a food from the farm. The first thing that you do is you wash. There's a reason, because again, I mean, first of all, to remove the soil, and soil contains microbes, right? So that there's a reason, right? So removal of the soil by washing and avoiding soil contamination can reduce the microorganism in the food from the source, right? Yes. Yeah, I mean, guys, this topic is not that important if you consider it, because these are general things. But since FSSA has given it in the syllabus, we cannot leave any topic, right? But again, I mean, these are the interesting things which one should know, and every one of you might be knowing, right? These are the no-brainers. I mean, you do it every day. So this is not that important topic, but yeah, I mean, when we relate it with the Schedule 4, you should have some basic idea, right? That is why I'm not going in detail. I'm just covering the basic things which you know every day. Yeah, I mean, there won't be much questions asked from this topic as well. The questions that would be asked would be from the Schedule 4, but in relation to this, right? So if you talk about sewage, so how from sewage, microbes can enter in our food. So sewage, especially when used as a fertilizer in crops, can contaminate food with the microorganism, the most significant of which are different pathogenic bacteria and viruses. This can be major concern with organically grown food. Yes, guys. So now the important thing here is, you would have seen in India, especially organic food, organic fruits, organic crops are very much in fashion these days. And why they are known as organic? Because there are zero chemicals used, and the sources sometimes that is used is sewage water. Sewage water is, guys, bad as well as good, because sewage water is very high in nitrogenous compounds, right? Nitrogen levels are really, really high in sewage water, and that helps the food to grow fast, right? Because natural nitrogen, it's providing the nitrogen for the plants, which is essential for its growth. But with the use of sewage, there are also dangerous microbes, harmful microbes that can attack the food. And it can, if you see here, many imported fruits and vegetables in which untreated sewage and manure is used. So if any farmer uses untreated sewage water, that can be harmful, because sewage water, at the end of the day, it is a again, it's a thriving ground for the microbes of like E. coli, Salmonella, Campylobacter jejuni, or I mean, billions of microbes can survive, right? So sewage water, whenever it's used in organic farming, it should be treated properly before usage. And if you see the method how we can avoid this, to reduce the incidence of the microbial contamination in the food from sewage, it is better not to use the sewage as a fertilizer. So, first of all, it's better not to use the sewage water as a fertilizer. But in case if it is used, it should be efficiently treated to kill the pathogens. So, yes, definitely, treatment of the sewage water is very, very important in case yeah, if a farmer wants to use the sewage water in the agricultural feeds. Now coming to water. So how microbes can enter in our food chain through water? Again, guys, soil, be it water or be it air, I mean, these are ubiquitous. They are present everywhere and they are unavoidable, right? So they can enter in our food very easily. If you see here, water is used for producing milk, processing milk, and to store foods. It is used for irrigation of crops, drinking by animals, birds, fisheries, marine products, then processing, for example, pasteurization, canning, storage of food. I mean, water is unavoidable. Where there is water, there is life. So if you have a water in a container, you keep it for a few days, you would see microbes would definitely grow in that water, right? So the microbes that grow are, I mean, common examples are Pseudomonas, then Flavobacterium, right? So then, yeah, I mean, these are the major species of the microbes which can grow, and water is present everywhere. So now how we can remove it to overcome the problem? Many food processors use water, especially as an ingredient, that are of higher microbial quality than the potable water. I mean, the microbes which are very, very less in the water, which is very less in the microbial concentration. So majority of the food manufacturer, they used highly treated water for manufacturing the food, so that there is no contamination from water in the food, right? Next, humans. So guys, humans, as I said, we are also a very good breeding ground from the microbes. Even FSSAI has given very clear guidelines. So whenever food is being manufactured, right? So the person who is cooking food or the person who is dealing with the food, he should not touch his nose or his mouth or his face, or he should not itch. He should not go out and smoke, or he should not spit around the working area, because these again can contaminate your food on a high scale. So that is why humans are again very, very good breeding ground. And if you see between production and consumption, so from the farm to the fork, when the food comes to your plate from the farm, so there are multiple stages when the food comes in contact with the food, with the humans, right? Be it during harvesting, then during cooking, during packaging, during transportation, and even during consumption when you consume the food, right? Sometimes you don't wash your hands. I mean, not everyone, yeah, I mean, sometimes you forget, or sometimes the condition is like that you don't have the facility to wash your hands. So yeah, you are ultimately contaminating the food, right? So I mean, there is a no-brainer in this to explain this slide basically. So yeah, so the major bacteria, if you see, these can be S. aureus, Salmonella, Shigella, pathogenic, E. coli, hepatitis A. So all these bacteria which we have read, right? So these can be very easily transferred from the humans to the food. So how we can remove this? If you talk about the methods, that is the proper training of the personnel. So that is why FSSAI, it has various training programs for the food processors, right? So all the food manufacturing units, it's a mandatory that for every 25 food, for the every 25 food the cooks, for example, cooks, right? There should be one trained personnel from the FSSAI. They should take training from the food from FSSAI. That program is nothing but FOSTAC, right? So we'll read about FOSTAC training program in detail when we come to that topic, right? So yeah, I mean, that is why FSSAI has taken very, very good initiative to train the personals how to maintain proper hygiene, how to have proper checkup, health checkup, how to maintain sanitary condition around their surrounding, and how to keep yourself clean, when to wash hands, when to whenever you go out, when you enter inside. So there's a proper dress, a different dress that must be used. So yeah, I mean, they teach everything in that training session. So now let's talk about the equipments. Yeah, I mean, it's again a repetition, as I mentioned. So equipments, be it knives, be it chopping boards, be it cooking bowls. So make sure use separate chopping boards and knives for different kind of food. For example, vegetarian food, it should be separate from for non-vegetarian food. It should be separate. Even the food processing area in any manufacturing unit should be separate for both fresh and meat products, because it could lead to cross contamination. So if you see, a wide variety of equipment is used, for example, from harvesting to processing to storing food. So we used variety of different utensils. And depending on the environment and the time, microbes can multiply easily on these equipments. For example, if I give you an example, FSSAI has clearly mentioned that the utensils or the equipment which is to be used for slaughtering the poultry, it should be of stainless steel. Why it should be of stainless steel? So that to avoid it from getting rusted, because if it get rusted, it can cause tetanus to the animal while slaughtering. So that tetanus can be transferred to the human who consume that meat. So that is why, yeah, certain guidelines have been given by FSSAI. And even whenever after slaughtering, the equipment should be properly washed and the area should be properly washed. And the if you would have seen in the poultry shops, I mean the meat shops, there is a wooden block on which the meat is cut, right? So FSSAI has clearly said it should be covered with salt for 2 hours to avoid any microbial contamination. Yeah, these are very, very basic things basically, right? So if you see, the cross contamination can occur of Salmonella, Listeria, Enterococcus, Pseudomonas, Lactobacillus, then Clostridium, and molds which can grow on this equipment. So yeah, I mean, just remember 4 to 5 bacteria from this, and the sources on which it can grow and how you can avoid it. There's no brainer again in this. Proper cleaning and sanitation of the equipment at equal intervals is very, very important, in addition to developing means to prevent and reduce contamination from air, water, personal, insects, and finally designing the equipment in such a way that the microbes cannot harbor themselves in those equipments, right? Yeah, so guys, that's it. I mean, this was a very, very easy topic. So I thought I'll just give you a brief idea, although there won't be much questions asked by FSSI from this topic. But yeah, when you relate it to Schedule 4, that is when it becomes important, right? So guys, thank you so much. I'm sure you would have enjoyed the lecture. So again, tomorrow we'll be having the lecture, right? So I hope things are clear, because topics are very, very basic, and these are self-explanatory, right? So guys, if you have understood things, just give me thumbs up. So we'll I'll take your leave today. So then again, we'll meet tomorrow, and I'll send you these lectures on WhatsApp, all the details of this lecture, PDF of this lecture. So if things are clear, just give me thumbs up, guys. And thank you so much for listening to me. And yeah, I'll also attach a PDF along with this. Just go through that PDF once and things would be very, very clear. And these things are basic. Even if you don't read it, I mean, this is very basic, right? Okay. So guys, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow once again. Good night. Take care. Study hard, right? And prepare for the exam. See you guys tomorrow. Bye. Take care.